Yeah. Our fourth and final theme, which actually I see as almost as important as the main theme of oppression, it's up there, is definitely family. You know, we get to know a lot about Hayachi's family. And her mother, the most important thing to her, Hayachi's mother, was family. And that kind of rubs off on Hayachi herself, too. But I mean, like, we meet Uncle Jill and Aunt Lee. I forgot her exact name, Aunt Lee. Her father's cousins. Like, I don't even know my father's cousins. So family is definitely very important in North Korea. Hayanseo describes family almost as like their social network, because obviously they're not going to be like friends with out. I wouldn't call them outsiders, but like their own neighbors sometimes, because it's just so separated in North Korea, as Hayanseo describes it. Like, it's more of a mentality of everybody look out for yourself. But Hayanseo is like, just family is very important throughout the book, especially to her. Um, Example is obviously, even after she escapes to South Korea, she goes through the most just to make sure Minho and her mother gets to South Korea. And, it really shows the importance of family. And then to give an example of, like, outsiders, not necessarily in their family, is Minho's girlfriend. Hyanchio puts Minho first before anything, which is her family, obviously, so why wouldn't she? But she wasn't willing to let Minho risk his life at first to go back and get his girlfriend, which just shows the importance of family. And I'm assuming it's pretty hard to fit into other areas. I guess, like, marriages and stuff obviously are an exception, but it's definitely harder to probably fit into a family, especially since usually in North Korea you're almost forced into a family when you get married. But definitely family is very important. More examples is when all the times Hanshio stayed with her uncles and her grandma. Like, obviously I stay with my uncle and grandmas sometimes, but to them it's different, I guess, because she was there for long periods of time. But you just can tell how close she was to her family. And I'm assuming it's like that for others in North Korea, because that's kind of what you got, because you don't know who's at your neck and who might be trying to turn you in, or it's harder in North Korea to probably form a social life. Well, obviously it is, but just an example. But definitely it's up there with oppression, because without family in the book, you don't have much of a story, because Hayansho's family plays such a big role in the book. And they're more than side characters, honestly. I mean, yeah, they're side characters, but usually when I think of a side character, somebody who slightly contributes to the story, but they contribute a lot to the story. They really build the plot, too, like Hansha's mother and brother. They help build the plot, even though it's a real story. But, like, without Hayansho having to go through the hardships of getting them into South Korea, the story, I mean, obviously it's still a story because she had to escape herself to South Korea, but it adds to the story and makes it super, I guess, relatable, because it shows what she's willing to do to get her family to safety and how important family is to her. But, yeah, that's definitely one of the big major themes that I noticed throughout the book.
And now to talk about symbols.
Major symbol I saw through the book was the portraits of Kim Sung and Kim Jong Il. To me, the portraits represented oppression / fear, because the family was literally. First example I'd give was when Hyancho's house started burning down, and her dad ran back into the house, and instead of grabbing their valuables, he grabbed the two portraits to make sure they didn't burn, because they're praised so highly. And people are government officials would come in and inspect the paintings to make sure they're clean and they just looked good. So he knew if he didn't grab those portraits, he probably would have gotten in trouble and faced prosecution for something that little, even though his life was at stake. The portraits really tie into the oppressive government of North Korea and just the main theme of oppression throughout the book. It's scary to think about something so little as a painting of your president. If it was dirty when the government officials inspected it, you were to face prosecution. And I mean, I know I wouldn't want to ever go through something like that, especially facing prosecution because of it. It's ridiculous. Actually, it was called Baobab or something, I don't know. They're punished severely for disloyalty, exactly. And I mean, it really just does. It overemphasizes. Actually, it doesn't even overemphasize because that is what happens in North Korea. But it really gives you an idea of how strict the government is in North Korea. Just another example of how people saw the portraits and how important they were. A story is told in the book. During a raging flood, a man carried the portraits above his head just so they wouldn't get damaged, and it overemphasized the importance of them. Another big symbol I also noticed throughout the book was masks, not literally but figuratively. They didn't necessarily actually wear a mask, but it was kind of just a front. Like, they appeared loyal, and they're taught early in life to loyalty to the country. So inside, they probably really didn't want to do what they're doing, but they're putting on a front, and it made it seem like they're just kind of being fake with it, and it made it seem like they actually love their country. Misspeaking about the country in North Korea could lead to prosecution and you being executed. You could have been publicly hanged, but it's definitely something you wouldn't want to do. So people in North Korea definitely have to put on a front, just like we see in the book. Hyeonseo hates North Korea, but she's not going to go out there speaking.